this week's video, we leave Texas after mooch docking for what feels like a couple months, but it's only been a few weeks. We're on our way to Florida, and we're going to make 5 different stops along the way. They include different RV stays that we found that we like, but different places that we've never been before. So we're going to try to give you the idea of our best overall experience and rate each of them as we stay there.
For us, this is the first time actually rating any of our stays, so this might be pretty interesting.
So we hope you enjoy our journey. Come along and wait till the end so you can see how we rated these. We're going to rate these based off of 6 different categories and then total them at the end.
And our rating is 1 through 5, 1 being the least, 5 being the best.
The categories include cleanliness, ease of access, noise or noise pollution, amenities, cost, and overall experience.
Now, Bill and I have not discussed this with each other on our ratings. We've kept it separate. So this could be totally different.
Yeah, we each have our own idea of what we're going to rate this at. So that maybe will give you a little less biased opinion or give you a more average opinion. I don't know how to explain that. So our first stop was to the Lufkin KOA in Lufkin, Texas. This is a KOA that we've never been to before, and we use the KOAs quite a bit. I think some people avoid those because sometimes they maybe seem overpriced. Maybe they're crowded. They're used by a lot of families, but that's why we like it. It has a lot of the things that when the weather's nice, kids can use the pool. We've had some that had RC tracks, which William loved. They have miniature golf. A lot of them have different yard games. So there's a lot of different things that we're able to take advantage of at those KOAs, and we think it's generally worth the cost of using that. We don't do it all the time, but we do it frequently.
So when we left to go to the Lufkin KOA, it had just finished with this ice storm coming across the southeast area, and cooler weather was just starting to get slightly warmer. So while there was a pool, it was really cold. Kids weren't able to really use it. And there is a fishing pond, lots of greenery area, general store.
There was also just steps away from our RV, laundry machines and bathrooms also located in that building. I think there's some cabins on site as well, but they weren't up in the part of the park that we were at. Here's how we rated the Lufkin KOA.
The first category is cleanliness. I actually gave it a 3.
I gave it a 5, and the reason I gave it a 5 was I didn't notice any dog poop anywhere or the smell of dog pee, and in general the sites were paved. I didn't have any issues. I didn't see any trash around. I thought it was pretty well kept.
I gave it a 3 simply because it was decent, mediocre, but at the same end of it there was a lot of long-term people that were there and just general things around.
Next was ease of access, and some of the ease of access part isn't really the campground's fault. I'm not going to say that it's their fault. It's just maybe a note for travelers on getting in and out. It's not that it's necessarily hard to get in and out. It was just weird. So we came in from the north, and there's a loop around the city of Lufkin, and we had to make a U-turn, and then we had to go on a short little kind of bumpy road through the woods. It wasn't very long, and then you end up on another road that takes you towards the frontage road. That's a one-way, and that's your only access in. And so you have to kind of make these weird loops to get in and out if you're going to go anywhere in Lufkin. I gave it a 4 though, because it really wasn't terrible. I'm being picky about it just wasn't that bad. I mean, the short distances, it was just weird.
I gave it a 3. He's the one that has to drive. Our next one was noise. I gave it a 3 because you could still hear the interstate. There were some dogs that were barking, but overall it was just in the medium range for us.
I also gave it a 3, and I think mainly because just during the day in the evening. We were trying to have it was warm enough to actually have the door open and let some of that air in. And you could really hear the highway noise from the loop around town. Again, it is what it is, but there wasn't really any tree breaks or anything like that to kind of barrier that noise. So a 3 also.
Next one was amenities, and I gave it a 4. So you have the laundry machines, you have the shower, bathroom, the pool, the pond. It wasn't a large area, but you still had some space that you could walk around with the dog.
I think it's funny how we're rating these, and kind of the one that's using is probably giving the better rating than the one that's not. So I gave it a 3, but I wasn't using any of those amenities either. So maybe it's just because I didn't get to experience them. So that's why.
And another note on that, it was full hookup, so I was able to use our washing machine and not actually the facilities, but they were there.
Yeah, so good point. We'll try to explain a little bit more about our part of it as well. So we did have full hookups at the Lufkin KOA. It was a paved, very level site, and really had no issues. It's pretty easy getting around the park. It's a little bit different, but it wasn't bad at all. In terms of the site width and space like that, we had plenty of room. I almost think we could have parked another vehicle behind our RV. So the length of the pass-through site that we used was really long. Width-wise, it wasn't wide, but we didn't feel like we were on top of our neighbor either. So I thought they was pretty good. Next up, we have cost. And so cost, we're going to go ahead and rate these. And I think the way I'm going to look at them in terms of rating them is how we think they compare to other RV parks that we've stayed at over the last year. They're going to be a little bit different in terms of what their costs are. So I'm going to try to give them to you, and we'll explain each of them because there's some reasons for the variation. So our Lufkin KOA, the average night stay or average night cost for us was $60.30. I rated that at a 3. I don't think it's a great cost, but it's not bad either. I think it's probably pretty close to average for what we would spend at a KOA in terms of could we find something better cost? Yeah, I think we could probably could have found something for $30 or $40 a night. For that area though, I think $60 is probably on the high end. So I gave it a 3.
I also gave it a 3 because we do have a KOA membership, so we do get 10% off automatically. And then it was a weekday rate.
Yeah, so that's a good point too. So we do have some discounts in some of these that I forgot to mention. So the KOA, we got the discount. And then, of course, all of these include taxes and any of the fees. Some of these stays had more fees than others. The KOA, I think, are pretty basic in terms of fees. But
last one is overall experience. I rated it a 3. It was an okay place to stay. We ended up doing a lot of homework. It was quiet enough for us to focus on that. We still ended up going into town for food, but there wasn't a whole lot of options. So really you kind of needed to cook what you wanted to. And we walked around and got what we needed to for rest and went to the next place.
For overall experience, I give it a 4. And really the reason I gave it a 4 is I just don't have anything to complain about. Yeah, we didn't get to use the amenities. Yeah, there was some highway noise and the cost may have been on the higher end for that area. But overall, just didn't really have anything to complain about. Will we stay there again? I think so. So that's why I gave it a 4.
So out of 30 points total, I ended up with a 19 for the KOA.
And I ended up at a 22. So at the end of the video, we'll go through and we'll give a total for each one and explain to you why we chose what we think is the best of our stays.
Next stop was at Harvest Host. And again, this is a membership item. Staying at Harvest Host allows you to look at places across the United States that are businesses, small businesses, places where they allow either a parking area, a lot, a field that you can camp on. Majority of the time boondocking. Some options do allow for electrical, some water, but most of the time you have to be fairly self-sufficient. And it's either a $30 donation or use one of their services that they have, like a restaurant. In this situation, we went to a brewery out of St. Charles, Louisiana, and it is called Crying Eagle.
And overall, we love the Harvest Host, and we love it because it usually gives us some sort of an experience. So, like she said, it's a brewery in this case. Other times we've been to places that were gator farms, horse rescues. There's all sorts of different experiences across the country that you can stay at, and sometimes it's a donation, sometimes it's just to be a patron of the business. But we really love them, and it also gives us a chance to utilize our solar system. We may not get to use, especially in the Gulf Coast part of America, where there doesn't seem to be as many boondocking opportunities as there's out in the West.
First category, cleanliness, I gave it a 3. Again, it wasn't overly clean. It was a parking lot that they had lots of space, which was great. It's next to a open pond, but otherwise it wasn't a well-kept, maintained in the sense of a RV lot.
So I was a little less picky. I gave it a 5. Considering that it was a parking lot, I thought it was actually really clean. I didn't think it was too bad. The gravel was okay. It had recently rained, so kind of where the RVs were at, there were some soft spots. So I gave it a 5.
Ease of access. Again, I gave it a 3 because we did have to go through town to get to it. But otherwise, it really wasn't more than a mile off of the interstate.
And I gave it a 4. Even though we had to go through town, it really wasn't that far. And it was pretty much a straight shot in, so I didn't think it was too bad. Noise is the next one, and I rated this a 4 because I actually surprisingly thought it was quiet. I actually thought it was quieter than the KOA that we stayed at, and the KOA wasn't in the city. This was in the middle of the city. I didn't think it was bad at all. So
I gave it a 4 also. Totally agree.
Yeah. Next was amenities. There really isn't any amenities at the Harvest Host unless you consider the business, and you can probably go either way there, but in terms of amenities, because there wasn't anything, there's no hookups, there's no pool, there's no things like that, I gave it a 2. And just because we're comparing RV stays, not Harvest Hosts. So that was the reason I gave it a 2.
And I gave it a 3 because of the food. Basically, it had the option of having your dinner available to you. If you're picking it because it's a restaurant, then you already know going in that that's what you're probably going to have for dinner. You could still have your generators going up to a certain time, usually about 10 o'clock at night. And again, a 3 simply because you already have to have your water and your electrical and things like that figured out before you get there.
Which on that note, we didn't use our generator. We used our solar throughout. It did really well, even though we had overcast skies. One of our neighbors did use their generator, and we didn't even hear it. On that note, I think there's only 3 spots at Crying Eagle. I don't know if that changes, and I think they only take reservations on certain days. So if you're staying there, keep that in mind. Next was cost, and cost I put down as a 4. And cost on Harvest Host, in terms of how to rate that, it gets a little weird. So it was our most expensive stay per night if you look at it in terms of what we spent in the restaurant. And we spent $133.55, and that included, I did a flight of beers. We bought a 6-pack of their beer, and then we each had food to eat.
For all 4 of us.
For all 4 of us, which actually compared to some of the other places we go out to eat, when we do go out to eat, I think there was a really good value. Their food was excellent. If you look at it in the terms of would you go out to eat or what would you be spending on food anyways, because you're probably going to have dinner, I think you could look at it and say that the cost here was $0 per night. So because of that, I gave it a 4 because I think it falls somewhere in between that you didn't really spend anything, but you did.
I gave it a 5. And my reasoning, because the food was awesome. Everybody loved the food. So for the price that it was, we were totally happy walking out of there.
Yeah, it's one I'd definitely come back for. Not only the food, but their beer. They had really good craft beer.
And additionally to that, while we were eating, the dog was able to come in with us and lay down on the floor next to us without an issue at all.
Yep, that's an added bonus. Overall experience, I gave it a 5. I think this is probably one of the better Harvest Hosts we've stayed at. Love the food, the atmosphere in their bar is awesome, and it's not just a bar, a restaurant, whatever you want to call it. It was really cool. I mean, there was retired women playing mahjong at tables next to us, so it's not like it was a rowdy bar crowd. In fact, I think we were probably some of the younger people in there, which is kind of funny. But dog friendly, kid friendly. Yep. You know, it wasn't loud. A really clean, neat restaurant. And then again, there's tons of space in the back to park your RV. They limit it to 3 spaces, and I thought it was pretty quiet. And so overall experience, I gave it a 4.
I gave it a 4. I think you said you gave it
Oh, I'm sorry. So, overall experience, I gave it a 5.
And then I gave it a 4. Because in reality, you'd have to be fairly self-sufficient on things. So when comparing stuff, it just was really great. It was good, but I still put it at a 4.
So my total for Crying Eagle came out to a 24.
And I had a 22.
All right. Our next stop was another Harvest Host, and this was Reposo Farm and Feed, another unique one. So again, the Harvest Hosts just give you a unique experience, and sometimes with when we've done the farms or the horse rescues, things like that, you're not sure what you're going to get. They're usually more rural. They're not in the city, and we've had great interactions with the owners. They're usually really down to earth, great people that just want to take care of you. First rating was for cleanliness, and I rated it as a 4. Again, I'm rating this with the idea in mind that this is a farm and it is a working farm. So there's going to be things here that you wouldn't find at the Crying Eagle Brewery. So I see those as normal. So to say that, oh, it's not clean because there's horse poop somewhere, I don't guess I look at it that way. So overall, I thought it was pretty clean for a farm. So I rated it as a 4.
And I put it as 3, knowing the fact that there was animals, they were walking around. You have the general farm smells that happen. We still had our windows open and enjoyed it.
Next was ease of access. This is not an easy one to get to. It is rural, and they are narrow 2-lane roads. They weren't terrible, but there was a few spots where I was a little bit nervous just getting our rig in there and getting back out. I think it was about 12 miles off the interstate, and it is all narrow 2-lane and very busy. Most of it was very, very busy. So I rated the ease of access out of 3 for this one.
I also put it at a 3. Thankfully, one of the family members drove us around to actually get us to where we needed to go. If we were guessing, we probably would have guessed incorrectly. So
Yeah.
That was helpful.
Next up was noise, and this one's pretty easy since it's rural. I gave it a 5. It was just dead quiet out there. Even at night, there was not really any noise from the animals. During the evening when we were there were still some people working on the farm, and they were quiet. It was very peaceful.
Yeah, I gave it a 4. Just because of the general noise of people working and doing their normal day-to-day things, but otherwise it was totally in line with us. Amenities would be the next one. I gave it a 3 because, again, you have to be boondocking, doing your own self-sufficient aspect of thing, but they did offer electrical if needed and water if we need to fill up our tank, so that was an extra bonus.
Yeah, so they had both of those services. We didn't utilize either of them, and again, I rated it a 2, but to me, the Harvest Host, there just really isn't any amenities associated with that, so that's why I give it such a low rating. That's not a knock on the place itself. It's just the nature of that kind of a stay. So.
And being the Harvest Host aspect, you either do a donation or use one of their services. They do have a store, but they actually said doing a donation would be better. So we went ahead and donated, and that will go into the cost.
Yeah, so that leads us into the cost, and we spent $40 here. So $40 was a donation, which I think went towards their local 4-H, which was really cool. And we like the donation ones just as much as the ones where we can be a patron of the business. I think they offered maybe dog food if we needed that, but it made more sense to the donation. In terms of cost, I rated this a 5. I mean, $40.
Overall experience? I rated it a 3. It was still a great one. It was just a little bit less than the other one.
I gave it a 4. Yeah, and same thing. I see it as a little bit less than the Crying Eagle, but it's still really great. Again, considering that it's a farm, it's rural, it had everything we needed, and it worked really well. Total score on the Reposo farm, and I hope I'm saying Reposo correctly. I might have that wrong, but total score I had it as a 23.
And I had it as 21.
Yeah.
Our next stop, we actually drove across the Gulf Coast area to Mobile, Alabama, and there's a state park there that we had seen before when we drove through a year ago and thought it looked really interesting. And Bill was able to get a couple nights stay there. And so Meaher State Park is right on the bay of Mobile, Alabama, and it's absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, when we saw this a year ago where we were visiting the Mobile area, I couldn't wait to go there. It was really pretty. It was in a really unique spot, and it had great reviews. There's restaurants all around, so it had a lot to going for it, and we couldn't wait to get there and stay. So we'll start with the ratings. So cleanliness first. I rated this a 5. We've stayed at a lot of state parks. We love the state parks. I thought it was very well kept, very clean.
So I decided to do 5 on the cleanliness. Absolutely loved it. It was a really nice area, well maintained and kept, and you had access to trash and things that you needed to keep your area clean.
Yeah, and next was ease of access, and this is right off the highway. Super easy to get into, super easy to get off the interstate. This one was just a no-brainer.
I gave it a 4.
So noise is the next one, and I gave it a 3. And really, I gave it a 3 because you're in between a highway and you're in between the interstate, I-10 there, and there's a lot of traffic, especially during the day and the evening on both of those. So you get a lot of noise during that time of the day. It doesn't really take away from the fact that you're in a really beautiful park, but if you're sitting there trying to relax, it is present, so you're going to notice it. At nighttime, I don't think I really noticed it, so it slept okay. It didn't really bother me. You do get some truck noise first thing in the morning, so noise, I gave it a 3.
Gave it a 4. Same thing with the truck noise and the highway, but we were actually around the most amount of people that we have been in all of the other stays, and the noise from the people was none.
Yeah.
You didn't hear your neighbors.
Yeah, everybody's really respectful in that sense. Amenities was next, and for a state park, I thought it was pretty well, and I gave it a score of a 4. So there's hiking trails, there is a viewing platform or a fishing platform that you can go use. There's, I don't know if I want to call it a visitor center, but there's a visitor center with a ranger in there, and they've got some different activities for the kids. Mm-hmm. They've got some gift items you can buy. What else was it? They've got some cabins. It was full hookups, which was really great for not all state parks have full hookups.
I feel like that's still rare, especially coming from the northern part of the United States. You don't always get the sewer option.
And it's locked at night. So I amenities-wise, I thought were really good.
I gave it a 5 because of the full hookups, the trails. You can buy kayaks to rent, go out on the water, easy access, and we spent a lot of time just walking around enjoying the area.
Yeah. A lot of wildlife to see there. We even got to see an alligator, which was kind of cool because they weren't supposed to be out yet. So, cost was next. So cost, we spent on average $65.41 per night. So this was actually ended up being on the higher end, I think, because there's some fees tied into that with visiting a state park. So I don't have the breakdown, unfortunately. I just know that that's what it ended up being. So I rated it as a 3 because in terms of state parks, we generally see the state parks closer to $30, maybe $40 on the high end. So I thought $65.41 was kind of high.
I rated it a 4 because I assumed that our access entry for state parks was included in that. It was higher, but it also had the full hookup option.
Yeah,
we paid for it, and it was worth it.
I probably could have been more generous because of the full hookups, but overall experience here, I thought was a 5. This was
me too.
Awesome. We love the state parks. It seems like everywhere we go, we love just have great experiences with the state parks, and this one wasn't any different. There's awesome restaurants within just a couple miles. The views are spectacular. We got skunked on the sunsets a little bit with some weather that came through, but the trails were really great. We got to see a ton of wildlife. If we were fishing, that would have been awesome.
So my total when added up was 27 out of 30.
Oh, so I ended up 25 out of 30 on this one. So far, one of the best.
Our last place we stayed at was Presnell RV Resort at Port St. Joe in Florida.
Yeah, so we don't do the RV resorts very often. I think sometimes the parks will put resort in their name, and I don't know that even this one's maybe on the edge of not being a resort, but there were some things that I could see it being classified as a resort too. So we're going to go ahead and call it a resort and score it in that manner. In terms of cleanliness, I gave it a 4. There's a but to this. I gave it a 4 because it was super well kept. I mean, as soon as an RV would leave, they would be in there putting weed killer down, weed eating, mowing, picking up trash. There was somebody around looking to pick up trash throughout the day. I just thought it was really well kept. The but part here, though, is the odor of dog pee, especially when it was foggy or in the morning when there was dew on the grass in our site. And I think this was throughout, was just really, really strong, stronger than most. Even with that, I still gave it a score of a 4.
I gave it a 4 also. Not that it was something that was a big issue, but there were a couple cigarette butts that were still in our lot when we pulled up.
Yeah, even with them picking up the trash, there was still cigarette.
Out of anything, that was probably the one that actually saw trash in a spot, but the overall well-kept aspect was, I think, really well done.
On ease of access, I gave this a 5, and I gave this a 5 because it's right off the highway. It's easy to turn into. It didn't affect us, so I didn't let it affect the score. But it's paved coming in, and there is a lot of gouges where the rear end of people's rigs have snagged or drugged down into the asphalt. So it may not be good access for everybody.
I also gave it, I gave it a 5 actually, because it was easy for us to go in to there and then get to other places that we needed to go. It was close enough, but still seemed by itself.
Next was noise, and noise, I gave it a 4. There was a lot of people there, and it was very busy, but it was never noisy. I mean, during the day, you could hear the weed eaters running and things like that, things that you would normally hear during the course of a day, but not obnoxious.
I gave it a 5. Occasionally a dog bark. Amenities, I gave this one a 5. And to be honest with you, there is a really long list. But the number one thing I think that we have this stay that we didn't have in the other ones was we were able to get packages sent to the RV park with our name on them. And so any Amazon packages or things that we needed to get mailed to us, we purposely sent them there, and we were able to pick them up every day. And then they had 2 pools. One was heated. The other one, they're trying to get heated, with a hot tub in the second one. There's boat access if you bring a boat. You also have a volleyball court right next to the water. It had a lot of options.
There was a clubhouse. The clubhouse had a really awesome deck. We sat up there one night and watched the sunset, which was great for that. You could see over the RVs. I think there was a little bit of a game room, but it didn't sound like there was much. We didn't go in there. I think William might have checked it out, but there wasn't much in there. I rated it a 4 for amenities, and the only reason I didn't give it a 5 is because it's a resort. So I expect a lot of amenities, I guess, with a resort in my mind. So I gave it a 4 for what it was, for what we needed. It was fantastic. Cost. So this ended up being per night our most expensive. But I think it should be. It's labeled as a resort. There was more amenities. So it was $74.51 a night. So Not a lot more, but a little bit, it was higher. I've seen places that weren't even resorts over $100 a night.
Yeah.
And some of the resorts over $150 a night. So I thought, considering that this was hard to get into and full almost every night, I thought 74.51 for this part of Florida was pretty good. Let me know if you think differently. I might be wrong here, but that's the way I viewed it. So I rated it, though, at a 2. And I rated it at a 2 because it was our most expensive of all of them. And we probably could have found better pricing in the area than that.
And I gave it a 4 for the $74 and the options that we had available, the locations. I think it was worth the price, knowing that other places we have stayed that were not considered resorts, they were just RV parks, have been more expensive. We were still, I think, in the winter springtime pricing. It wasn't yet March 1st, and so I think prices have gone up for the summer part, coming to spring break and things like that too. We also did not take an option of doing a month-long stay, which usually people can get a better deal if you book in a week or a month-long.
I do think we did. So yeah, on that note, I do think we did get the week rate because we were there 7 nights. So we probably did get a discount for that.
Okay, so the overall experience, I put it as a 5. And one of my reasonings for that is because we had within 30-minute drive from us 2 state parks with beautiful beaches. They had access to the bay and the ocean side. We had seashells. We had great days to go out and enjoy the sun. And it was a really great week.
Yeah, I agree with all that. There's so much to do in that area, and we had a lot of fun. I think the only reason I gave it a 4 was just, again, because of the really tight space and the dog pee smell.
Okay, my total was 28 out of 30.
And I gave it a 23 out of 30. All right, so what do you think our favorite RV stay ended up being for this Gulf Coast swing? So here are the totals that we got.
The KOA was 20.5. The farm was 22.
Crying Eagle Brewing was 23.
And Presnell's RV Resort was 25.5.
Meaher State Park was 26.
Okay.
So really close between Meaher State Park and Presnell's RV Resort. But Meaher State Park gets the overall win, and this is what I thought it would be.
Yeah, it was spectacular.
Yeah, I'm actually disappointed we only had 2 nights here. Can't wait to go back. I think when I booked it, 2 nights was all I could get. But we will absolutely be back. We love the area. There's a lot of things to see and do there. We haven't explored Mobile itself yet. We've done the
the USS Alabama.
Yes, the USS Alabama.
Yeah.
We've done that before and loved it. I wouldn't mind going back there. There's a lot of neat planes on display. There's some other things in the area right there to do, and I think just experiencing more of the state park itself would be awesome.
And the encouraging part about this is that we've loved going to state parks, but we've always been afraid to bring our rig into state parks. And so I think we're going to explore more state parks because of this awesome experience.
Yeah, and honestly, every time we've done a state park, it's been really great. So we want to do more. We're looking forward to doing more, and hopefully we bring you along when we do that. So hopefully this was valuable to you if you're in the Gulf Coast and checking out this area. It's worth noting that this was towards the end of February when we made these visits. So it might be different experiences, different times of year. Maybe it's busier in the summer. Maybe it's less. I'm not sure. For us, these were all really good stays. I think I would go back to all of them. I wouldn't have a problem with any of them. We didn't have any that were just terrible.
Yeah.
So maybe in the future we'll seek out ones that maybe have poor reviews and try to include those too. But we didn't, when I was planning this, we didn't look at the reviews to see if they were good or bad. We just went off of things that we looked at the pictures and looked at where they were locationally and the cost and used that to pick them and then hope for the best. And then we were able to rate them on our own.
Yep. And the other thing to think about with harvest hosts is sometimes our rig does not fit into those classifications.
Yeah.
So when we do pick these sites, it's because they're close to the area that we're already going to be driving, and our rig can fit into them.
Yeah, unfortunately with the harvest host, because of that size restriction on some, there's some that I would love to go to, and we haven't been able to do that just because we're too big. Doesn't mean we wouldn't maybe visit those businesses along the way at some point in time, but we're just not able to stay there. And sometimes that's a restriction at state parks too. So keep that in mind. We've had some state and national parks, I believe, that we've looked at that we are just too big to get into. A lot of the state parks, again, we're really surprised with Meaher State Park being full hookups. A lot of the state parks we've looked at across the U.S., generally, at best, you only get electric, maybe water, and then you got to utilize their dump station. When you want to empty your tanks, you can't, there's not actual sewer at the sites. Those aren't deal breakers, but they're just things to consider.
Yep.
So we hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe. It's free to you and it helps us out. We appreciate you watching our video, and we'll see you in the next one.